So after doing the company setup side for the rental module, the next thing we need to take a look at is the rental items. And it's worth taking note that Transact POS has a fully integrated rental module, so there is no special area for the rental items. Those things are in your inventory just like your regular items. Now, in order to get rental items into your system, you can add them one by one like you would any other item. You can also import your rental items via a spreadsheet, and we can convert other rental softwares, for example, something like Total Rental, and we can take those inventory items, those rental inventory items, and import those directly into Transact as part of a conversion. So let's go take a look at one particular item. We're going to go IC inventory file. We're going to type in our item number here. And there are a couple things to take note of about a rental item versus a standard item screen. First thing we have here is the item type is going to be rental. And this matrix value, you'll either see non-serialized or serialized items. In this particular example of a concrete saw, this is a serialized item. So what we can expect is that we have two of these, for example. So we can click serial numbers down here and see the two different items with different serial numbers, so that when we check this item out on a rental contract, we would designate this one or this one, so we know what item is where, and we can accurately track our return on investment for these particular items. Also take note of that we have a class set for rental, so when we run our sales by class report, we get an accurate depiction of what's going on in our rental department. Another thing to take note of along the lines of accurately depicting our return on investment is we need to make sure that when we enter our rental items that we have a cost for these items. That way, when we run our reporting on resale value, and if we've got our money's worth out of this particular item, if we need to have a cost so we can accurately depict that. Let's take a quick look at the prices tab, because this is the biggest difference in a regular item type and the rental item type. As you can see here, we have the rental rates. Now, as we discussed in the company setup video, in that video there were checkboxes of designating we want to have these particular rates on all of our items. So we did not require a 4-hour rate in our setup, or overnight, or weekend, or holiday. So you can see those are left blank, but we must have a rental rate for each of these other categories. And as you can see, this one is filled out. And the way you do that is select edit, and now we can edit these values as we see fit. You can also track meter hours if you want to do that here in this section. If you have a deposit for this item, you can do that here, or a cleaning fee. The damage waiver you can do as a percentage of your rental or as a flat rate. The turnaround time here, you will want to indicate if this is an item that when that thing is checked in, that you can't turn around and check it out immediately. You'll want to put a turnaround. Maybe you have to clean it. Maybe you just need to check it. So if you want to make sure that you can't just rent that same item just minutes later, you can do that here. If there's a fuel charge, you could check this to indicate that. Here we have the create service ticket on return. We talked about this in the company setup section, but this is for this particular item. So if we wanted this concrete saw to automatically create a service ticket and be booked into our service department, we could check that to ensure that. Grace period on return. If you want to offer, say, a 10-minute grace period with no penalty for when this item's returned, you could do that, and you set that here. Another thing that we want to look at is the rent units here, which you can see on either tab. But this is sort of on a regular item type, we would also call this an associated item. So there are two different types of associated items or rent units that you can do for a rental item. You could add a rental item here, or we have merchandise. So what this does is when we put this concrete saw on a rental contract, it'll automatically add the components that we put in this field or this one. So this particular rental item doesn't need other rental items, but let's say if you're renting a man lift, or you're renting something like a floor scrubber or something like that, and then you always rent that with a 100-foot industrial extension cable, you would put that extension cable on this rental item so that every time you rent out the floor scrubber, you also rent out the big cable that goes with it. And so what that does is when that rental contract gets created, you have the item that you started with, and then it just adds the next rental item with that as well. On this tab is the same idea, except it's merchandise. These are not rental items. These are things that the customer will consume when they rent this product. And for in this example, we have a concrete blade for this concrete saw. And we're going to say that every time somebody rents this item, they have to buy 3 of them, because that's just what we've seen in the past, and that's what we've decided. So I've already added this item, but if you wanted to add an item to either of these lists, it looks very similar. We just go to add, and then we go to find, and then you can type in the item number here in search, just as you would for any other item search and transact. And one last thing that you need to make sure that you have for your rental item is you need to make sure that you have some available and in stock. If you don't make sure that you have this item physical correctly, when you go to check out this item or go to rent it, it will not let you, because it will think that you don't have any. So if you need to adjust the quantity, you would do that just like you would for any other item, and just go to adjust quantity and do a receipt or do a physical and account for exactly how many you have in stock.